and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There it goes. Moving along now.
Okay, well, let's have some public comment. Ready?
Morning, Commissioners. David Adams, EMS Senior Instructor. Letting you know, we had a meeting last week with the builders and the architects for the North County EMS station. And they have informed us that building will start on May 8th, which is 1 week from today, with a tentative completion date of September 22nd. So, yeah, it caught us a little off guard,
Yeah.
but
That's incredible. One of us.
caught one of us really off guard. So I'm here to, you had talked about doing a groundbreaking. And then wanted to see some dates, times, how you'd like to proceed with that. With your calendars pretty busy, pretty full. I did ask Cindy Gabriel to not fill anybody after, I think, 2:45 next Monday. So we could have this discussion and see about if you wanted to do something late Monday afternoon up in Litterville, or kind of what you're thinking.
What about the other days of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday? Does that work for anyone? John?
Nope, I'll be at work till 3:34.
You were suggesting May 8th in the afternoon. But
Yes, like at 3:30 on May 8th.
Give us enough time to get up there. So we have hearings until 3,
Takes about a half hour.
so we don't run over.
And what time did you say, David?
3:30 is kind of what we were thinking by the time you got done and then got up there. So I mean, I'm very flexible. You tell me what time works for you.
Thursdays, what? How long do we want on Thursday?
This week. We have a tour.
Oh, yeah.
Cancellation tour.
3:30 on Thursday.
Oh, I
On
have, yeah,
Monday, the 8th,
okay.
3:30 work, sorry.
But let's talk about Thursday. So Monday at what?
Monday at 3:30 work, as David suggested.
It's fine.
Okay, and then my next question, so thank you for that. My next question is how, we'll work with Vivian on this. How big do you want this? We were planning on the 3 commissioners, myself and somebody from Schultz Construction. But do you want more people? Do you want less? Do you want to have a podium so you can speak? So you can do these all kinds of different ways, and Vivian obviously the expert, but just from her and I's conversation.
I think for the grand opening, Alex, we'll want more, but for this,
Would we want to have the mayor of Leonardville?
well, I don't know. I was gonna, if you had a time, I was gonna let all the mayors.
Yeah, all the mayors up there
I
know.
know when it is, in case they want.
I can, okay, are you gonna do that, or do you want me to ask Vivian to reach out? Because she'll put something out, I'm sure, in social media and such.
I think it'd be good to have one person in control of notifying everyone, that way we know
Right.
it's getting done rather than
Yeah,
getting split up too much.
Vivian, okay,
And that
Yeah,
would
we
be,
definitely need to invite all the North County.
yeah, this impacts.
It's
all
probably
of it.
easiest just to contact the city clerks, each of those budgets, and they get the mayors.
okay. All right, thank you very much.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Any
Thank you.
other public comment? Clancy?
A couple things. I'd first ask the board to add an executive session to my time at 9, please.
I'm going to make a motion to add an executive session to Clancy Holman's administrative work session time. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to add an executive session for Clancy Holman's administrative time. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I had one other item. We discussed a little bit separately, the idea of this resolution docket for the district court, that they want to work with the county attorney's office to set up a specific docket that will handle some of these lower level crimes that have been charged cases that are sitting there and need to be pushed through the system through an individual contract with one attorney. And Chief Judge Bannister and Barry are available to come in to public comment. It's about the only time I can work them in on May 8th. Make sure your May 8th has plenty going on for you. If you're willing to have them come in during public comment, talk about it a little bit and have you ask any questions you've got about it. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll let them know. Thank you.
Any other public comment? I want to welcome the Zoom watchers. We had some computer glitches this morning, so we started without the Zoom, but hopefully you're on now. Okay, so we'll go to commissioner comments. Commissioner McKinley.
All right, well, going back a while, Wednesday the 19th was a meeting for the North Central Juvenile Facility. We met at the Saline County Jail. One of the things we had discussed, met with an attorney about a case that had been filed involving the facility. And the attorneys made a cash settlement in the case, and we wanted an explanation. Board wasn't particularly happy with how things were, but it seems like that's how those suits are settled now. They toured part of the jail because they're considering using it to expand the facilities over there. And was agreed to hire an architect to make a preliminary review of the building to see what would need to be done to modify it to make it for juvenile detention. It has to be modified, and they had the funds available, so we're going to look at it to see whether that's feasible. Kind of a feasibility study for right now. And then from Thursday through Monday, we had a trip to San Francisco. Except for the flight, we had a great time. I'm not a good flyer. We had the nephew who's lived there for 9 years, and he gave us mostly a walking tour of the area. It is mostly hills, and I'm not in good enough shape to live there. 3 days wore me out. We got back late Monday, and then Tuesday noon I had to leave for the county commissioners conference in Hayes. I think John's going to go over some of that later. There was 8 presentations, only one wasn't good. Most of it was got a lot of good information this time. I was impressed. And then this weekend spent a lot of time reviewing the information for the special use permit that we're going to look at later today. So.
Okay. Commissioner.
Yeah, going back to last Monday, I attended the April intergovernmental meeting, the Rock and Cays event space up on campus. Major item of discussion was a rural housing initiative district presentation that was given by the city of Manhattan. Looks like we'll be having that full presentation here at some point in time in the near future, and it's kind of a new item, so I'm trying to sort through that. Tuesday afternoon, as mentioned by Commissioner McKinley, traveled out to Ellis County and Hayes to attend the 47th annual spring conference of the Kansas County Commissioners Association. Started off with some networking and dinner at a place called The Fort, at axe throwing, bowling, darts, all kinds of other cool stuff. Pretty neat place. Good just to have the opportunity to catch up more than anything. Wednesday was day 1 of the conference. We heard from the president of the KCCA, Ellis County Commissioner, and the mayor of Hayes to start. Had a follow up on the 23 legislative session from Jay Hogg, Deputy Director, General Counsel for KAC, and Mike Taylor, our KCCA lobbyist. Had a presentation on the appraisal process from David Harper, Director of PVD with the Department of Revenue. Always an interesting discussion. Next, we heard from Sarah Bloom, Community Development Specialist for the Kansas Department of Commerce, and Tim Zimmerman, Business Development Project Manager for the Department of Commerce. Their presentation was EcoDevo 101 for counties. Lunch presentation, we heard from Dennis Clary, Director of Custom Civic Engagement from the Kansas Leadership Center. Then after lunch, we heard from Morgan Barnes, Outreach and Engagement Manager for the Kansas Office of Recovery. She went through some outreach and action opportunities for rural broadband and technology. And then the last presentation of the day was from Nicole Aiken, Deputy Counsel from the League of Municipalities. She spent some time discussing and going through the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and wow, I'll get into that a little bit later, but the questions that came up, wow. Thursday was day 2. We discussed some issues and challenges concerning the commissioner's report that was done the day before by all of us. We heard from Keith Beckers, a Thurston County Commissioner, who gave us a membership update on some other programs and things available with the National Association of Counties. Then next we heard from Ryan Atkinson, Assistant County Administrator and Finance Director for Butler County. His presentation was the county budget, aligning money with priorities and plans. And the last presentation of the conference was made by Carl York, Tax Specialist, Office of Policy and Research, Kansas Department of Revenue. He discussed Kansas sales tax and use tax, and how it applies to Kansas counties. After getting back Thursday afternoon from Hayes, I spoke with Elizabeth Ward, Human Resource Manager, on a couple of topics, including the upcoming 24 budget, some thoughts on personnel, strategic planning for Riley County, and some professional development ideas as well. Friday morning, I spent the first half of the day at the Kanza United Way's Community Investment Day at the Foundation Center. I had a chance to listen to a handful of different local and area agencies and their work on community efforts for the community. Event was pretty well attended by a very engaged set of citizens and volunteers who were present. Lastly, I was going to mention that K-State lost another legend, Mr. K-State himself, Ernie Barrett. His love for purple will be very, very hard to match, and working efforts spanned almost, well, you do the math, well over 70 years. I was also going to mention that Riley County also lost a longtime employee, passing of Kathy Willard, who used to work in the treasurer's and appraiser's office. I just always remember as a very friendly, down-to-earth person. When you went into the office, she would really like to talk. It was always comforting.
And like to cook for the office. She was
Yes.
well known for her baking.
Yes. Yes.
And she was a good baker.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the was a little Thanksgiving potluck thing. I think half of that was her.
She would just randomly bring things in for him all the time. She's a great lady.
Yeah, we very well missed. So, very last thing, K-State baseball took 2 or 3 from Texas Tech over the weekend, find themselves in second place in the conference, and we're moving up the ladder a little bit there. I don't want to jinx anything, but maybe a regional at home, maybe. Triple fingers crossed. Just wanted to end on something positive. That's all I got.
What are you talking about the crowd?
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool moments with that. Deuce Vaughn, that
guys
video
going
with his
home.
father, 4 of them are heading to their hometowns. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Felix will be a good fit with Kansas City too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, well, I'll just go back to Monday. Last Monday, the 24th, I too attended the intergovernmental luncheon held at Ruck and K's. Presentation was made by Stephanie Peterson about the Rural Housing Initiative Districts and the moderate income housing programs being made available to the state of Kansas. My take was it's a very complicated program to understand without further study. Questions were asked by our county appraiser, Anna Burstone and Amanda Webb, and they addressed some of the issues. This program, I took several notes and said it could impact ad valorem taxes and market evaluations going forward. And I understand that the cities, any of the cities, incorporated cities in the county and the city of Manhattan can apply for these grants. Apparently Jeff at Habitat for Humanity contacted Amanda Webb later in the week, has a potential project for the city of Manhattan that he wants to discuss with the county commission sometime in May. Our agenda is pretty full, so I don't know if we can work them in or not, but there's some issues that they're trying to push so quickly. Anyway, and Tuesday spent some time in the office and later with a landowner in Keats concerning the Lagoon project. We will be sending another targeted letter out to some additional landowners this week. Then Wednesday, I met with the county attorney and touched base on several issues concerning the county and city. I didn't attend because of personal reasons, didn't attend the Hayes conference. But I did get a lot of work done here while I was in the office, and I really appreciate having that parking space. So I used that a lot this week. On Wednesday afternoon, Brian Foster, BG Associates, and I attended a presentation at the office in Aeromod on the wastewater systems they've been supplying in various towns and cities, specifically Kansas, and they have international systems going in also. I think it's in Afghanistan or something. And they do have a plant in St. George and various towns in northeast Kansas. Most of the populations are around 1,000. We discussed the Keats needs, and they could possibly work with us if we cannot find acreage for a lagoon. Their representative agreed that the lagoon would be a best long-term solution, but he would be willing to put some financials together for us. I'm going to be doing a report on the meeting and upcoming and for the Keats taxing district. Thursday, I spent some time in the office reviewing a lot of the materials for this week, specifically the public meeting today on the energy substation. I received a stack of emails and letters from concerned citizens in the Ashland Township. I also spent some time with Deputy Council Craig Cox concerning the meeting I had on Tuesday in Keats. And did a lot of other work. Friday, Craig and I met with the county appraiser to discuss real property market evaluation in farming properties, specifically those that deal with land purchase for public use, and how they're evaluated. It's a lot different. It's really an interesting topic. So we also discussed Monday's presentation on the RHID and MIH programs. We have concerns with the program as presented. There are a lot of questions around the program that will take some time to work through the issues. I also drove over to Ashland Bottoms to look at the proposed location for the Evergy substation. Almost got run over by a semi. It was like about this far behind my car and wouldn't back off. I couldn't even find a place to pull over. And anything about to reduce the speed limit over there. I think the semis and vehicles are using it as a shortcut over to I-70 as opposed to going around.
That's because 77's closed.
Yeah. 77's closed.
They were almost going to close McDowell Creek there at Gary County, the bridge at the same time.
Yeah.
They're not.
It's just crazy. And he finally went around me and beeped at me all the way. It was
really
spooky. Anyway, that was Friday. Let's see. I spent most of the afternoon prior to that here in the office. Saturday afternoon, I attended a reception for Bruce McMillan in celebration of his 40 years as an architect. It was really well attended. It was over at the Columbian Theater in Wamego. Lots of people, lots of food. He's planning to not necessarily retire, but he's going to be selling business, one of his associates, and then continuing to work. So he will be around. He just didn't want to wait another 10 years for his 50th anniversary. Did a lot of landscaping this weekend. I planted a lot of plants, tried to cut grass in the wind. And then on Saturday, I also took a ride out. I saw went by the Wildcat Creek substation over by Annenberg Park. That's a big one. It's rusting. It's pretty nasty. And I also went out to the one that we approved last, I think it was last year, Marlette, the substation out there, like just a little bit by the construction company. And I've been looking around at that. And drove around. So it's the one on Marlette and Tuttle Creek. Out in there. Yeah. So, and just basic weekend, so, it's a long time. I got a lot done while I was. Anyway, I think we'll go on to, a business meeting.
Yeah, okay, if I could do this fairly quickly, Commissioners. First item I have, 2023 equipment and vehicle internet auction. Need a motion for approval.
We'll make a motion to approve the 23 equipment, vehicle and internet auction notice of intent to sell.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the notice of intent to sell, for 2023 equipment. All in favor?
Aye.
All three, please. Next, Commissioners, I have tactical correction.
There was no question. Go and make a motion to approve the tax roll correction.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the tax roll correction. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Commissioners, I have an appointment of Jacob Larson, the solid waste management committee, and an approved resolution.
Go ahead, make a motion to appoint Jacob Larson to the Solid Waste Management Committee and approve resolution 050123.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Jacob Larson to the Solid Waste Management Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's things to sign for Jacob. And Commissioners, Raleigh County Personnel Action Forms, Heather, Bianco. Not sure, Newmeyer, volunteer firefighter, stipend, Rafael Chavez, Leon, new hire, commercial appraiser 1. Carlene Brewer, new hire, appraiser 1, personal property, and then Ashley Martinek, new hire, HR clerical assistant. All three signed, please. Commissioners, have any change to the minutes?
I did not. With that said, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes as written from the April 24th meeting of the Riley County Commission.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the April 24th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tentative agendas look okay, Commissioners?
Getting longer.
They are.
No, that's fine.
Any items for next week's press conference?
Nothing.
Okay, next, Commissioner, you have your executive session with Mr. Holman at 9 o'clock.
Finish this first.
You bet. Thanks, sir.
We got 1 minute, right?
We do, or part of it. Anyway,
Wait, put her out the room.
part of one.
Good idea.
Holman had that impact on the room.
Yep.
Phew. That was a whirl there.
Sorry, I just knew the day's not getting any better. I'm just easier to get it done.
Okay. Would you have anything to start with?
No.
We'll go ahead and make a motion then to move the county commission, including Chairwoman Pokey, Vice Chairman Ford, and Commissioner McKinley, recess into executive session on potential litigation for the purpose of consultation with Clancy Holman, County Counselor, attorney for the commission, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, an exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. And the open meeting to resume in the commission chamber at 9:10 a.m. Amanda Webb, Director of Planning and Development, will be present during a portion of the executive session to provide factual information.
Second.
I'm not gonna repeat all that. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn into executive session until 9:10. All in favor? Aye. Okay. I give you 3 minutes.
Okay. Wow.
Chris said that-
Really not designed for fellow members of the board.
No.
It might be an interesting day.
We good there?
You're right.
Okay,
It's
I'll move that the Board of County Commissioners come out of executive session.
No second.
been moved and seconded as the board come out of executive session.
We didn't take any real action, did we?
No,
Okay.
absolutely.
I also moved then that the record reflect no binding action was taken during the executive session.
No second.
It's been moved and seconded that no binding action was taken during the executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That is all I have.
Great.
9-10 Commissioners, Member Shelley White.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am coming for remote. I apologize. I've been fighting bronchitis and whatnot for about 3 weeks, so I'm tackling this from afar. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. The first Kansas Department of Corrections budget that I have to present to you today is our Adult Services Comprehensive Plan. As noted in my Commissioner Agenda report I did, we are not to be getting any additional information from the legislature this year. Therefore, our allocation from the Department of Corrections is to remain flat moving into FY24. I will draw your attention. Jesse is finishing up some last minute calculations and will be down there momentarily. There weren't significant changes to the actual grant application. This is the second year that we've had the online portal, and so we are doing our best to adapt to the things that are requested of us in that document. The only real things that changed in the content, of course, were budget numbers and our goals regarding recidivism rates and those that unsuccessfully, successfully terminate or that go to prison. We are required by state statute to maintain a 75% or higher success rate or achieve a 3% increase each year thereafter. We are currently experiencing a 76.3% success rate, so we are maintaining that state statute requirement. The Department of Corrections calculates anyone who doesn't go to prison into that number, and we pull that out as well and separate those two. And so our true success rate is the 58.3%, but nonetheless, we are meeting the state statute requirement. It is a really long and cumbersome online document, but if you scroll down, the real, I guess, merit, if you will, is the bottom dollar. And we have some last minute changes that we went over with Daryl and Elizabeth yet this morning, and we'll present those to you as well. Adult Services funds 2.65 direct line staff and 0.6% of a position of a supervisor. And then, of course, 0.4% of my position. Apologize. Is Jesse there yet?
No, she is
not
Shelley.
Okay, all right. I could not see since I have up my agenda. Okay. Let's see.
Well,
Okay, the total allocation.
28.
yeah, thank you.
The FY24 adult services allocation is $488,856.74. $97,904.76 of that is for our Pawnee Mental Health Services contracted position of care coordinator. That leaves us approximately $390,950 to operate the personnel and operations and adult services. Therefore, we will need approximately an additional 72,000 to run adult services or have to make significant personnel changes, which of course we have had to do in the past. Those numbers were built on, the personnel numbers were built on in consultation with human resources and payroll, with the merit increases with a 6.5% COLA. And of course, all of this is subject to change once you folks make your determinations on your budgets. We always have to change our budget after we submit it, as long as it's within the $488,856.74. We typically always have to change that once you guys get done with your budget. So that is not uncommon. Just wanting to let you guys know that. And I see someone at the bench, but it's
Shelley,
yeah.
I have a question. You're not showing 2023. Are you showing 2022 throughout this budget?
Yes. Unfortunately, the state implemented a new data collection database and continue to contract with Microsoft Office, and it was built off of a medical model, and they are not able to get the data that we put in there every day on a daily basis. They are not able to get the data back out of the system. So we are left to not only input data into the case management database, but track data in Excel spreadsheets on top of that. And so our most current data that we actually get from the Department of Corrections is FY22, unfortunately, as we are about 75–80% through FY23. And so we are not able to get real data from them, unfortunately. Okay. Would you like for me to go on to adult services until Jesse gets, would that be best?
Well, as soon as we only have 2 minutes, maybe we should pass what we have first and work from one by one.
Okay, that works. So of this, the unfunded amount that will be submitted is approximately 72,000. So essentially what you are approving today is the Department of Corrections allocation of the $488,856.74. And I deeply apologize.
We had a couple, Daryl Eady, Budget and Finance Officer, Shelley and Jesse and myself and Elizabeth talked this morning. And I believe, Shelley, am I correct that we were talking about taking out the dollar amount, total cost for estimated for the county itself on this?
Yes.
So because we haven't talked about the appropriation itself, what we're going to do. And so it wouldn't really be totally appropriate for us to put, okay, we're assigning $100,000 or whatever on when we haven't even talked about it yet. So we take that line item out and just talk about, or have them take that line item out and just talk about, we will be allocating some amount. We just don't know what it is yet. It make this more appropriate.
That's not her request.
If I could share my screen, I have the change line item that we had talked about.
Shelley, can we, this is Elizabeth Ward, Human Resources Director. Can we just be very clear on what your request is? What you iterated this morning to us was that your request was to have approval of the grant request with a unfunded amount. If the county decides that there'll be an appropriation, that some portion of that unfunded amount may be applied from the county. But at this point, you're asking to submit your grant, which is due today. And if that amount is not covered by the county, those positions will have to be eliminated, is what you had said this morning. Because I don't want to be really clear that we haven't really gone through any of that. The commissioners haven't gone through any of it. So
Correct. And
They're
I
are prepared to advise them that this is the right amount.
And I have the rewording that Jesse and I worked on, if I could share my screen with that. The one thing in addition to that is so those numbers are plugged into the actual grant portal, and whether we highlight the approximately 72,000 or not, it is those numbers are in there. Because we only are allocated 488, 856, 74. And with our projected personnel cost, obviously it's going to exceed the allocation. But I do have that wording unless Jesse has it in handout form.
We've talked about this before, but coming in the day of the submission is just not acceptable to the commission.
It's really making it difficult.
It makes it very difficult to approve these kinds of numbers without actual figures. And we've talked about this before, Kelly. I don't know why we're still having this problem.
Yeah, it is 100% a timing issue. Our grant documents have to go before the Joint Corrections Advisory Board before they come to you folks. And so within the timing of it is extremely frustrating in that the timing of when you guys have to have your budget, because we're on two different budget cycles, it makes it nearly impossible for everybody to do their jobs, really.
Well, we've got to figure out a better approach because these are difficult allocations due to, as you mentioned, two separate budget cycles and just the differences between what the state's funding and what we're funding. And we got to have an opportunity to be able to discuss it and feel comfortable in it.
Yes.
Seems to happen almost every single time. So we've got to find a better way.
Yes, and I 100% agree. And I totally agree. We've been working diligently with staff, with Elizabeth and Michelle and everyone over there. And I wish we could be all on the same budget cycle, but we certainly can see what we can do next. Elizabeth, I had some ideas this morning on how to try to align things a little better with two different fiscal years.
I'm not comfortable putting an unfounded amount on there. We can pass the grant, that's fine, and fill in the gaps later, but we kind of hit this point every single year with these, and they're not new grants, they happen every year. So I don't remember what we did last year specifically,
As far as how much the allocation was,
or how the process.
my recollection is this conversation, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And I'm not sure how we do it differently when we're combining two fiscal years into your one.
I did ask Shelley this morning, and we need to think of different ways to handle this. And one of the suggestions that I would say is that we start their budget in January. And we understand. I mean, I understand that they're on a different time frame. So that's not going to change in my mind. I think we've got a plan with enough time to discuss. I mean, and Shelley knows, I mean, I'm not saying anything that she didn't have, but I didn't see these numbers until Friday at 4:45. Daryl came in and said, here's this, why is this different? And I don't know. I don't know why it's different. And I know that this is their deadline. I get all of that, but we need, I can't recommend to you guys that this is right or not right, because I haven't looked at it.
Well, that's what you're saying. I know there's different budget years is a problem, but the problem is it's due today. You have to approve this now in 5 minutes, look at this and try to understand it in 5 minutes. And that's the problem. As I say, we need to start this process.
One thing
Bring it to us.
Well, and part of the problem is you don't know how much money you have to allocate at this point, because you haven't gone through the entire budget process. So it makes it really difficult for you to make a decision of, okay, I can allocate $5 or I can allocate $500,000. You don't know.
Yeah, and that won't change because we won't have all of our budgets done, but we can at least start working through numbers and start estimating some things. But I don't know how to change that, right? That's always going to be a problem. But we haven't even been able to verify. And
Well, and just like what I think makes it even more complicated is the numbers that you know that are coming out of the COLAs. Even late last week, we found out that there might be another, you know, COLA figure. And so I'm calculating based on numbers that we got in February or March from HR. And so that's also a moving target, whereas the numbers maybe that you guys might get for your budget, I think Elizabeth, am I correct, is already maybe different.
So what you're referring to, Shelley, is a change that was made, 6 weeks ago, when we collectively realized that the CPI was indicating 8% instead of the 6.5. But if we're being totally transparent, those numbers were sent out with the 8%. It was corrected and sent out before I brought the request to the commissioners. And no, they definitely have not approved that. Definitely is a moving, you know, we don't know what they'll approve for COLA. But we've been aware of the 8% now for a little bit.
And
I think there's some changes coming on that front and
There
how we
probably
make those calculations.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, we got 6 pages here that we hadn't seen at all until this morning.
The
and
only
that's not
change on
from
those
us.
is that little blurb that says that we took out saying that we were gonna ask the county. That's the only change on those 2 pages.
Right.
There's one for juvenile, one for adult. Everything else is the same.
So here's my question. Is there a certain amount of allocation that has to go with that in order to get the grant?
no, absolutely not.
Okay,
Up until FY23, we have never had county dollars for any of this. And so they've always been submitted
okay, that's
out
what.
in supplemental
Yeah.
funds.
So, I mean, we do believe collectively that she can submit her grant request without any intention or promise that the commission will fund, but there will be consequences if they, I mean, she'll have to deal with the consequences if she gets that amount of grant funding and personnel will either have to change or.
So Shelley, could just not what Elizabeth said happen, that you just do the grant applications without any amount for the county allocation and go forward, and then once the county process is done, whatever the board decides on COLA, then add it into your budgets later with no impact to your application?
Correct.
Huh?
Correct. Correct.
So I suggest that's the best way to do it, but then also, I mean, the other point is, even though we do that, we need a week, the board needs a week or two in advance. This was brought to my attention late Friday. And I pulled these two together quickly and said, I do not like going to the board, not prepared, not knowing the answers to these numbers. I called them and said, get with Shelley and Jesse right away and let's try and clarify some of this, because Shelley, we don't want to be an obstacle to you, but these commissioners need to understand the numbers that they're about to approve and sign off on. And so if we can do the application without any designated amount of a county appropriation, I suggest we do that. But then also it still needs to be before the board a week or two in advance.
You need to also understand that unlike prior years with the new R&R process, it stretches our budget cycle out. So we're not going to know those numbers later into the year, and we're going to have more time to debate what those funding mechanisms are and what those allocations may or may not be. So that has to be taken account into the process moving forward. It's new, we're all adjusting, but still, I can't put a number to something I don't have. That's just something I won't do.
Yeah, and that's
I'm making that clear to everybody on that one, not just here. So I'm not just picking on you guys, but just in general, we need to understand that process and work at it in a manner that's far less chaotic and far less on the dime.
And just for clarification purposes, we have been working on this budget with staff for months and months. And so I'm a little confused, and I will get with staff to see exactly the timeline of things. But we have been communicating with Rich, with your folks I feel effectively in the last 8 weeks. But that aside, I think moving forward next year, I won't be in this position next year at this time. And so I would recommend having a work session with the commission and HR and community corrections an actual working session in advance of the JCAB, where all these numbers could be gone over in detail, just so that everyone's comfort level will be a lot higher.
I would probably make a suggestion that you work with the Budget and Finance Committee on those first. And then Daryl can come with us with the work session on that separately.
Sure, whatever works for you.
To move this forward, if acceptable by the board, and if Shelley believes it works, can the board approve these, Shelley, and you take out the amounts regarding any county appropriation, and then you guys will be able to meet your grant
Yes.
deadline?
Jesse's,
That's what I handed you.
Yeah,
that has been updated and no county amounts are in there.
Yeah.
Where is that? Which page? What page was that on?
The adult portion is on page 20. I don't know the juvenile portion.
It's the highlighted,
I highlighted section for you.
and then on page 31 towards the middle, at the bottom. Under JIA.
Is the highlighted here, Shelley? The highlighted line.
On page,
Yeah.
on page 20, there's a highlighted piece, but that's a change.
Right here. Yeah,
And that's the other one.
yeah, no.
And then there's another one on page
On
31.
page 31, I didn't have a highlighter, I apologize, so it'd be 31 towards the bottom under the headers JIA. You just see where it mentioned the county return.
Salary and benefits, that's 380, almost $391,000 that you're looking at for personnel and operations. That's a lot of money, so.
But that's all grant.
That's from the state.
That's from the state.
It's not from the county.
It's not.
Yeah, that's not for the
Right.
county. That's, I mean, their total.
Correct, Jesse?
Correct. Yes.
they're suggesting they need a little over $38,000 to continue to run it under their.
They're for juveniles.
Right.
For juvenile.
Okay, so
Okay, we're signing a grant, but no, but if it's got the county dollars out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what we were nervous about too. That's all.
We have to have time, and there's got to be a way to separate this out and, you know, I can allocate and deal with two budget cycles. There's got to be a way to do that.
this one's a tough budget to deal with at its core, and we need more than surprise.
More than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Getting on that schedule.
Yeah, because the next time you come to us is the day of, we aren't going to approve it. I'm not, anyway. It's just too much.
I don't exactly know how to go about the
Or either.
motion here.
Just.
We have to do each one of them separately, but.
With no county appropriation.
Okay.
Included.
So I'm gonna make a motion, first motion, go ahead and approve the attached adult services comprehensive grant with no county allocation.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the grant without a county participation. All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
then the second one would have to be for juvenile services, so I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 24 juvenile service comprehensive grant with no county allocation.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated by Commissioner Ford. All in favor? Aye.
What's the last?
And the last one's for, I don't know what the reinvestment is, but it's under the same program, but a separate grant. And they do those on a 2-year basis. It's right in front of you. Okay.
The investment grant is a 2-year basis.
This is the first year they've made it 2 years. It funds, it's always been just 100% salary for our YCIIP position. This year they've added in a little over 6,000. Sorry, thank you. Youth court position.
Oh, okay.
This year they've added in a little over $6,000 to be applied towards incentives for clients. But they also made it just a 2-year position. So 67,230 times 2. And again, it goes solely towards salary, other than that 6,000 for incentives.
And it pays about 80% of that position.
It'll be 80% for the first year and about 75% for the second year. The portion that isn't covered will be covered by our juvenile services.
And prior to juvenile justice reform in about 2019, the county had paid for that position 100% for about 10 plus years until this grant funding became available.
Well, for now, you're gonna have to either just apply for the grant and wait for the rest of it, or we don't do it at all.
Well, the funding does not guarantee the position,
Right.
right?
No.
So, right, we have the position, and if there's not funding, the commissioners can choose to change it to a part-time, you can choose to eliminate the position, whatever you would need to do, but
Jesse, do you want to explain how that's split?
I think I kind of just did, it's, right now, it's covered, it will start out, FY, well, our first year of the grant will be covered 80% by, it'll be covered 80% by the IIP, the reinvestment grant, with the other 20% will be covered by juvenile services, the juvenile services grant, and next year it'll be just assuming the adjustments to COLAs and raises, anything like that, it'll be moved to 75% will be able to be covered by the grant, the reinvestment grant. The remaining 25% will be covered by juvenile services.
How's that gonna work on the half year? Because this budget starts in July.
Yeah.
We won't have that done yet, obviously.
yeah, but we have our budget done for the entire year. So that position, we have done our whole budget for 2023. And so that is an ongoing position. And we have the grant in place, and we'll see if that.
So our 23 works into
Our
the
20
beginning of that 24.
It
Right?
does,
Okay.
and our 23 had already approved for the full calendar year of 23, that I think it was 19% in 23, and then went to 20% in
Okay.
24.
So
Okay.
basically, if we had to make changes, that wouldn't take place until January 1,
Correct, yeah.
whatever.
Yes, and
whatever day
you're
that
right,
falls
this is
in.
inherently complicated, but that you had already approved that 19%.
Okay. Okay, well, go ahead then and make a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 juvenile reinvestment grants with no county allocation.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the for year 24 and 25 juvenile reinvestment grant application with no county participation. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Sure, please sign up.
And Rich, if it's okay, I'll get with Cindy and pull out the pages that she would have that have the mention of the county and how to replace them.
Yep.
Thanks, Jesse. Thank you, commissioners.
I signed it after she got.
You just gotta sign. It's just that page, it's the other financial pages that don't make sure. And Darren was to be sure those. Didn't just go to link.
Yep.
Great for Julie commissioners.
No. Hang on.
You had to ask.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Try. I told them that before. It's not the first time.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Shelley. Get feeling better.
Thank you.
Fix your own.
What?
Fix your own.
Yeah.
Morning.
Morning, Bummer. How you doing?
I had to replace phones over the weekend, so I didn't actually get your message till this morning, but we're good.
Okay.
We're good. I'll probably have some follow-up questions we can talk about on Friday meeting.
There's two on each page.
Also, if I can video you or something, whenever you get free time.
That's an understatement.
Not today.
Oh, today's the day?
It's late afternoon anyway.
I think I got these.
Thank you.
That's, I have them still with me here.
No.
I'm sure I missed one, so you're letting me know.
Well, in the meantime here, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we recess as the Board of County Commission and reconvene as the Board of County Health.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we recess as the Board of County Commissioners and reconvene as the Board of County Health. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That way we're ready to go when she's ready to go.
I've only got about 6 minutes. So
Yeah, okay. Take your time.
one.
Thank you.
Don't have to be legible, just put
That stamp idea sounded better and better.
I don't know how to school. I guess we do this, right?
Yeah, I can if I have to. Okay. Don't like to, but. Thank you.
Okay.
Ready? All right, good morning, commissioners. Julie Gibbs from the Health Department. I'm here with two grant requests. These are both due on the same day, next Tuesday. So this-
Not today.
This first one is a CDC grant. It might sound familiar. It's OD2A, overdose data to action, but this is through CDC instead of the one that we're currently working on, which is through KDHE. So this would not only continue the good work that Asia is doing, but we really would move the needle as far as connecting people to services. You can think of this grant as prevention, linkage to services, and data sharing among the community. So right now we're only brushing the surface as far as prevention, as Asia's only part-time and she's only able to get into the high schools right now in the 3 counties. However, we've had a number of requests for her to present in the middle schools, at different meetings, within businesses, at conferences, and she's only been able to do some of that as she's been so busy with the high schools. Since this current grant ends in August, we'd really like to acquire more funding to be able to expand her focus and get in front of more people with this information. Also, this grant opportunity really highlights the use of navigators as peer mentors, advocates, or whatever term the local entity determines. We would follow the model that CKF Addiction Treatment Centers of Kansas uses by hiring mentors to work in our facilities in the Board County region. I've already reached out to Kanza via Christie and be able to determine their interest in hosting a mentor just to kind of see what the interest is out there. And at least 2 of them have responded that they are very interested in this. We'd use these mentors to be able to talk to individuals, clients, or patients who are at high risk with their screening when it comes to substance use or mental health issues, and they can get them to the resources that they need to, and also follow up with them, as we lose a lot of patients to follow up. Along with this, I'd use the funds to hire 2 full-time community health workers. After consulting with Asia, we determined this is what we need to not only continue her work, but to expand in other areas. We would also use the funds to hire an IT specialist to assist with bringing data together and connecting data with a visible public-facing dashboard to help raise awareness. And along the lines of raising awareness, we have money set aside for marketing campaigns targeted to specific populations determined by our assessment. So this funding would span across 4 counties to include us, of course, in Waubensee, Potawatomi, and Geary County. I have support letters from all of the counties, as well as a support letter from BOCC, KDHE, and I'm working on one from the hospital. This is a 5-year grant with a max amount of $1 million per year. So I will ask for the max amount. It is due next Tuesday, and if awarded, the grant cycle will begin this August and run through July of 2028. Any questions on all of that?
I'll go ahead then and make a motion to approve Riley County Health Department submitting the overdose data to action grant application to CDC.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the application for a CDC grant. In favor? Aye.
Thank you. And my next one. Next one is a DEC grant through KDHE that stands for Drug Endangered Children. This, I believe, is absolutely necessary in our areas. We do not have anything like this that connects individuals to services that might touch on drug endangered children at some level, to include mental health services, drug addiction treatment and recovery services, EMS, RCPD, DCF, the courts, and other healthcare sectors. I've had many conversations with individuals in our community who agree this work is much needed and have shown their support through letters that I'll submit with this grant. So I do have letters of support from RCPD, USD 383, Barry Wilkerson, Flint Hills Wellness Coalition, and Kanza. This grant is intended to enhance communication and collaboration between entities to address substance use and mental health issues with an overall goal to increase safety for children in homes with these issues. To reach these goals, I would use this funding to hire a part-time DEC coordinator to form a coalition, conduct an assessment in the community, work with the coalition to set internal goals based on the data analysis and coalition's projected outcomes. And along the way, we'll conduct a community campaign to raise awareness and promote prevention. We'll also provide resources to those entities that assist with these drug endangered children. So this is a 2-year grant with a max of $65,000 per year. It will begin October 1 of this year and run through September of 2025. Any questions on this one?
Okay, I'm going to move to approve the Riley County Health Department's request to apply for the All Hands on DEC grant through KDHE.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to allow the health department to apply for a grant to the KDHE. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, Commissioner.
David, having things signed?
No,
No,
not on
okay.
either one, then I'll give you no documentation.
Okay, I need to make a motion that we recess as the Board of County Health and then reconvene as the Board of County Commission.
Second.
So moved and seconded to recess as the Board of County Health and reconvene as the Board of Riley County Commissioners. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna skip our time.
Time for Rick repeat,
Mhm.
board rate.
Good morning, members of the board, members of the public. Brian Pete with the Riley County Police Department. I'd like to request the commission's permission to put in for a grant for $50 million from the Riley County for a new facility. No? Okay, then I'll move.
If the grant's due today, definitely not.
No, I meant the grant was gonna be funded by the Riley County. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to bring some levies, everything.
It's just.
I saw that look that I got from the chairwoman, so.
We call that stunned silence.
Well, good morning, everyone. Again, Brian Pete with the Riley County Police Department. The first order of business is to request a letter of support from the Riley County Commission for us to apply for a grant. There are no matching funds requirement, but for a grant for $800,000 to implement new technology for the Riley County Police Department. It's something that we've brought up to the law board before that we've gotten authorization. This letter of support would just mean it would just help us with strengthening grant approval from the federal government.
That's
Okay.
fine. I'll make a motion for a letter of support for a grant for RCPD.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to apply for the Riley County Police Department to let me see. Let's start over again. It's been moved and seconded to approve a letter of support for the Riley County Police Department to apply for Smart Policing Initiative Grant Program. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, members of the commission. Other than that, seeing that this is a marathon day for the commission, I have no significant statistics types of information that I can provide to the commission today. However, I am here to answer any questions or can answer any questions regarding within the last couple of weeks. We've had 2 in-depth situations within our 2 in custody deaths within the Riley County Police Department. The first happened to be an unfortunate suicide. The second occurred, I believe, just right before the weekend last week, and in this instance, in both instances, actually, KBI is the lead investigation for both of them. We are currently in the process of reviewing all of our policies, procedures, everything else to the effect of how, when we do the arrest, all the way to what we're looking at within our corrections facility. We've got a support team that we've formulated, and the support team is moving through, again, each of these policies and regulations and just looking at bandwidth and how we're able to handle things. At this particular moment, and what I do expect in the future is that that all of our staff members acted in accordance to what our current policies and procedures are, that every possible step that we can take to have avoided or to be proactive in what happened in both these unfortunate events has been taken in the past. But again, we want to make sure that if there's opportunities for us to increase that proactivity, if we can look at things like technology implementation, other programs and procedures that we can incorporate to continue to minimize or reduce these types of things from happening in the first place, we are taking very immediate steps to do that. So with that being said, I can stand ready for any questions that the commission may have.
Not at the moment.
Is your new software installed that we approved to have done for the cameras?
I have to double check on that one, ma'am. I don't think that it's been installed just yet.
I was wondering if that's going to help with this. Any further incidents in the future?
Yes, it would definitely add to what we're doing.
Just checking.
That was approved just before you started, Brian. It was,
Yeah.
I think, the jail doors and stuff, the software was handled, so.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here, Brian. You're up there. Yeah, there you go.
Blank check. Looks like everybody wants us to keep writing those.
Commissioners, it is time for the 9:45 hearing, zone rezone. You, sir.
Good morning, commissioners.
Begin. Joseph McGraw has made application with Riley County Planning and Development requesting approval to rezone an unplatted tract of land from I-1 light industrial to C2 highway business and plat the tract into 3 commercial lots. There's also a request by the applicant for a deviation from the requirements of section 26.5C-4 pedestrians and bicycles of the Manhattan Development Code, of which the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board approved. The subject site generally located approximately 250 feet northeast of the intersection of South Scenic Drive and Stag Hill Road on the south side of Stag Hill Road. For decades, the site has been developed with a warehouse storage structure built approximately in 1948, known as the Restore the Heartland Building. The Bubble Wash Car Wash has been in existence since December 2005, when the applicant converted an existing Quonset hut storage warehouse into an automated car wash. The applicant received approval for a variance to construct and locate a car wash attendance booth near the entrance of the car wash, as the lowest floor of the uninhabitable structure was situated below the required 1 foot above base flood elevation. The attendant booth has since been removed. Currently, the applicant wishes to rezone the property from industrial to commercial zoning designation, path track into 3 commercial lots in order to accommodate an existing and future commercial uses on the property. The site has been zoned light industrial since at least 1974. The use of the site remains consistent with the current zoning. The subject property benefited in 2022 from the vacation of a portion of Stag Hill Road right of way along the north boundary line of the subject property, making the unplatted tract larger. And in December of 2007, the Riley County Planning or Board of Zoning Appeals granted approval for that variance I spoke of earlier. The structure or there are no conditional uses, special uses, or variances associated with the site. The subject property in its entirety lies within the 1% annual chance floodplain, shown here in red hatch pattern. The applicant has proactively submitted his request to the Department of Water Resources for a permit to fill portions of the site in order to elevate new construction above the required 2 foot above base flood elevation. If this request is approved, the applicant will also need to obtain a floodplain development permit through the county. Riley County Fire District number 1 will continue to serve the site. The nearest county fire station is the Ogden Fire Station located at 500 East Riley Avenue. However, City of Manhattan Fire Station number 4 is located within 2 miles of the subject site, likely to be the first responder. According to the most recent Flint Hills Joint Land Use Study, the subject site is partially located within the land use planning zone. According to Fort Riley's installation operational noise management plan 2015, noise sensitive land uses such as housing, schools, medical facilities, churches, etc. are generally acceptable within the LUPZ shown here in blue. With proposed zoning, it's not anticipated the site will have noise sensitive uses, but it's still a possibility. The entire property is located within the airport overlay district as part of the regulatory changes established within the adoption of the new land development regulations. Was the elimination of the noise or the N1 airport noise hazard zone in favor of the utilizing the more advanced airport overlay district that the city of Manhattan. The magenta line outlining the blue conical area depicts the boundary of the AOD with the subject property well within it. The development of the property will be subject to the requirements of section 4.21 airport overlay district of the Riley County land development regulations, essentially dealing with height. You may imagine. Okay. This is the preliminary plat illustrating the orientation and location of the proposed lot boundaries and general topography of the site. City and county staff met with the applicant along with surveyor and architect. The subject site is already served by City of Manhattan water and sewer with plans to connect all future development the same. As per the interlocal agreement between the city and county and outside the city sewer and water agreement, the future development of the site will be subject to the city's building codes and fire code. Thus, building permits will need to go through the city. The floodplain development permit will go through the county. It's a collaboration between the departments and the entities. The subject site is sandwiched between the road right of way of Stag Hill Road and the right of way of Union Pacific Railroad. It has direct and indirect access to Stag Hill Road. It has 2 existing entrances. With proposed lots 2 and 3 sharing an entrance with reciprocal travel easements along the common property line, and that's what you see right here. Lot 2 is developed with a principal structure and the former bubble wash, now converted into an accessory storage building. While proposed lot 1 and 3 are undeveloped. Although the county engineer waived the requirement for traffic impact study, Schwab Eaton prepared and submitted a small traffic study, which was evaluated based on Manhattan Area Transportation Strategy, or MATS, the requirements thereof. The study concluded that no action is necessary to mitigate the effects of the proposed development on the adjacent roads. While Eaton also prepared a stormwater drainage study evaluating pre and post-development scenarios. The study concluded that the maximum water surface elevation in the northbound Stag Hill Road ditch generated by a 25-year storm increases approximately 0.1 foot in post-development conditions compared to that of the pre-development. However, said post-development peak water elevation stays within the road ditch and does not impact adjacent roadways, vehicular drives, or structures within the site. There's not a request or requirement for the property to be annexed at this time. And that is the final plat of the property with no changes from the preliminary plat. This is the preliminary development plan offered to just simply illustrate the proposed development and parking spaces required for the proposed use of the site. And if you have any questions, I believe this was in your packet. So there it is. Again, here's the existing entrance here and one over here. One here and one over here. Few pics of the site. I'm standing at the easternmost point of the property, which also serves as the entrance to Stag Hill Golf Course. One of the two entrances to the subject property is to the left of the photo. And walking southwesterly along Stag Hill Road, looking across the proposed lot 1 and currently developed lot 2. This structure has been there since again approximately 1948 and has served several different purposes over the years. This pic also illustrates the slight differences in relief from the somewhat elevated buildings to the drainage ditch along the south right of way of the Stag Hill Road. And just southwest of the restore the Hardland building is the former local wash. As you can see, it's currently being used utilized as an accessory storage unit, building, if you will. This pic also shows the existing ingress egress to proposed lots 2 and 3. And I can just beyond that, here's a better pic of the aforementioned ingress egress looking southwest across the proposed lot 2 and the undeveloped proposed lot 3. I'm backing up to the eastern portion of the site. This picture serves to show the board the existing paved access to proposed lot 1. And this is current paved parking area for the restore of the Heartland building. The majority of this parking area is designated for a new building. And finally, this shows the existing parking along the south side of the restore of the Heartland building, sandwiched again between the building and the railroad right of way. As any zoning request, this was reviewed with the goals and objectives and future land use map of the 2013 Eureka Valley Highway 18 corridor plan. Although the future land use map specifically projects the site for agricultural use, it has been zoned and used as light industrial for several decades. It is quite frankly unknown why this wasn't accounted for in the creation of the future land use map initially. Nearly the entire area of the scenic drive K18 Stag Hill Road interchange is projected for commercial use, shown here in red. The request was also reviewed with the 2015 Manhattan Urban Area Comprehensive Plan, more up to date, if you will, plan. The subject site is located within the southwest planning area, according to the plan. Similar to the future land use map of the Eureka Valley K18 plan, the future land use map southwest is in the Manhattan Urban Area Plan projects the subject site for agricultural use. As mentioned previously, in nearly the entire interchange is projected for commercial use, including a commercial node. That's what you see in this little wheel here. As mentioned, for some reason, the property wasn't included in that interchange in the commercial designation. The fact that the site is less than 3.5 acres and has been developed with connection to city infrastructure makes the site quite unsuitable for its projected use. Furthermore, with the future land use map projecting the area for commercial land uses, the subject site current zone is a bit out of place. The proposal to rezone the property from light industrial to highway commercial is consistent with the goals and objectives of each plan. On April 13th, the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board forwarded a recommendation of approval of the request to rezone a tract, this tract of land from I-1 light industrial to C2 highway business for the reasons listed in the staff report. The board also approved the concurrent plat of Stag Hill Business Community Edition, as it was determined that all the requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations and the Sanitary Code have been met. Staff also recommended that the board approve the request to rezone the subject property from I-1 and light industrial to C2 highway business, as the request is in general conformance with the Manhattan Urban Area Comprehensive Plan. Staff also recommends that the Board of County Commissioners acknowledge the approved final plat of Stag Hill Business Community Edition, accepting any easements, rights of way, or licenses as shown to be dedicated on the final plat. That's all I have with this one. We have a Mylar out here for you to sign as well. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to fill those with it.
Can you bring the Mylar to us? I don't have any
Questions?
questions. It's pretty straightforward.
So we need a motion.
Yep. Go ahead and make a motion to sign resolution 050123, approving the request to rezone a tract of land from I-1 light industrial to C2 highway business, as it was determined that the request is in general conformance with the goals and objectives of the Manhattan Urban Area Comprehensive Plan, and all requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations and Sanitary Codes have been met.
I'll second.
We moved and seconded to sign resolution 050123 as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I also need to make a separate motion, also to approve resolution 050123, acknowledging the final approved plat of Stag Hill Business Community Edition, and accept any easements, right of ways, or licenses as shown to be dedicated on the final plat, as it was determined that all the requirements of articles 26-5, 26-8, and 26-9 of the Manhattan Development Code, Riley County Land Development Regulations, and Sanitary Codes have been met.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to acknowledge the approved final plat of Stag Hill Business Community Edition as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we need
Thank you. Okay.
Come on. That one, it's a page.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
This year.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, busy. I dragged her out there. I saw you. Yes. Was the director of education. She started. He started. She was the only of us. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Are you doing
I'll give you the other. Oh, I did. Spend a little time with stuff. I don't know. This big words of the neighborhood. Yeah. I forget, I haven't heard anything about it. I know, spur of the moment, always.
Oh.
I will send you look at the stove.
Yes, I do. Yes. 45. Yes. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
I just, I do the split, so I don't know.
Oh,
That's why I don't.
maybe so.
Except. This one,
No, I,
good.
but I think I need to touch something.
Oh.
It went back, started all over.
This is. Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to find this
Yeah.
Okay, this, it's time to call the special use authorization to establish and operate an electrical substation. I will open the public meeting now. Do we have any comments from the board at this point? Okay, so Bob.
Okay, so I'd like to go forward with the presentation as presented to the Raleigh County Planning Board on April 10th. At that time, the Raleigh County Planning Board recommended denial of the request as presented. The applicant, through discussions with planning and development staff, was urged to see if there's anything they could do to address the concerns that were brought up with their proposal. Late last Friday, was contacted by Evergy, and they mentioned that they had worked things out with the current landowner to relocate it. And so that's going to require a new site plan, a new legal description, and so on. Not only was the proposal to change the location of the original site for the substation, only back at a switching station. It's also a proposal to change the entrance, where the entrance would be in the site to serve the substation. So with that, staff recommended and recommends today to the board that the request go back to the planning board with the new site plan, the new legal description, as a substantial changes to it for them to reconsider what's going on. I think it gives the planning board some time to evaluate and advise accordingly. I spoke with members of Evergy, and they are in favor of that. They would rather do that than try to go forward with the proposal with no time for any review.
So they're vacating that proposal? Is that what they're saying? They're going to dismiss what they've proposed already?
What they're saying, what I'm saying is that they're agreeable to, if the board would be willing to remand the item back to the planning board for review, because there are substantial changes. Staff has not had a chance to look at the new site plan, legal description, access, all that. So, and neither has the planning board, quite frankly.
So this discussion is, you're saying this discussion is mute.
At this point, we don't have a presentation for you because the maps are all wrong. It's going off of what the planning board and what they presented to the planning board. They're suggesting a new location.
That's,
I sound like a legal.
well, I mean, the item before you is the recommendation of the planning board on the plan that was presented back on April 10th. That's the matter that's before you today.
And legally, we have to make a decision on that.
You do. I mean,
Yes.
the decision is either is to approve or deny that, and it has to be by a unanimous vote of the board. You would also need a unanimous vote to send it back to the planning board
Yeah, but it can go back to the planning board.
with a unanimous vote from the
Yes.
board.
But we do have to act on what's before us today.
That
Yes.
is the action.
Yes. Well, staff's now making an additional recommendation, but again, your role here today is to hold this public hearing and make a decision whether you want to, by unanimous vote, either deny the, overturn the decision of the planning board or affirm it. That's what you're here to do.
If we have affirmed the planning board's denial of it, it still goes back to them. I mean, then they have to start over.
It doesn't, this would not go back to them. There
No,
would
I
have to
know,
be a
that's
new
what I'm saying. They would
application.
have to start over with something.
Yes, it would be a new
Exactly.
application.
With a new application.
Yes.
If we send it back to the board, same application revised or what?
Well, you could,
I'm not clear what we're
Right.
doing here.
no, it's a great question. If you decided you hear something today, whether it's from staff or somebody in public comment or the applicant, that, well, planning board should take another look at it. Yes, you have authority to send it back, but because there are two valid protest petitions here, you only need one. You still have to have a unanimous vote to take either of those actions. That's what you have to do by statute.
The board also has the authority to send it back without making a decision on approval or denial. They can send it back to the board.
Well, yes, you would have that option also.
That's the option that they're asking for. That's the option we're recommending for.
But only by unanimous vote.
Yeah, I don't. Does anyone want to send it back, or do we want to go ahead with her? We've got so many people here.
I'm not sending it back at this point. That should have been something that should have been discussed a long time ago instead of just showing up at said meeting once again and just bringing it up.
Well, they did.
This is,
I
I
know,
know, we had. Well,
I know.
Evergy's one that have changed their.
I don't think we would do that very often for anybody else anyway, so I'm gonna follow the procedure as outlined.
We're in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Let's go forward.
Okay, so again, my presentation is going to be half correct. But that's
We'll just go forward with what you have.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing to consider the request made by Evergy Central Kansas Inc. for a special use authorization to establish and operate an electrical switching station. Proposed location for the Kansas substation is a tract of land and is located immediately west of the intersection of Kansas Prairie Lane and McDowell Creek Road on the north side of McDowell Creek Road. And again, this location is not the location. According to the applicant, proposed Kansas substation will increase the reliability, serviceability, and load of Evergy's electrical system in the city of Manhattan, Raleigh County, and surrounding areas, including the Ashland block. The new substation will contain equipment that function as switches and breakers and will allow personnel to perform maintenance on the transmission lines and substation equipment without subjecting customers to unnecessary outages. The subject site is zoned AG agricultural and has been zoned as such since at least 1974. Most of the property surrounding this site is also zoned AG agricultural, shown here in gray. There are no conditional uses, variances, or other special uses associated with the site. Riley County Fire District will, number one, will serve the site. The nearest county fire station is the Ashland Fire Station, located at 2881 West 32nd. This map shows the location of the existing station and that of the new Ashland Fire Station yet to be constructed. This is the floodplain map. This is pertinent to the discussion as far as locating such stations. There was some considerable discussion with Evergy. Evergy had discussions with the township and the folks out there had meetings as far as locating it further north and up to the river, even beyond the river. And Evergy will speak to more as to why they cannot locate in a floodplain. This is the site plan illustrating the orientation and location of the lot's boundaries in relation to the proposed substation. A new entrance is planned. Again, this entrance here that they're proposing will be moved. And will not be in this location. The county engineer has reviewed the site plan and suggested to change the stormwater runoff from a single point collection to sheet runoff, as it will be less likely to cause any erosion issues. I did speak with the county engineer regarding the proposed entrance along the west line over here. And he said that there wouldn't be any issues with that. Now, this is the example of an electrical switch station submitted by the applicant. This was considerably larger than the one that is planned. They do have their own presentation and some more accurate depictions of what that substation or switch station will look like. A few pics of the site. This is looking north along the west line of the subject site. This is exactly where the proposed entrance will be, rather than over here. You can see across the property already there is a 115 kilovolt line. That line there extends across the street going south across Conza Prairie all the way down to Geary County. It's part of an existing grid already in place. Same position, just kind of still looking north. This photo shows the field in its entirety in the Cedarburg farmstead. By the way, this is the current property owner. Same position, looking east and northeast. This shows the general location of the proposed substation. Again, this would no longer be the proposed location. Cedarburg farmstead along the entrance to the Conza Prairie, that's right here. And same position here. And one from the cemetery, looking through the trees, looking northeast at the subject site in the background. Now, with a special use condition or special use authorization, it's much like a conditional use. There are conditions that are attached to it and agreed upon from the board and the applicant in order to make whatever the special use may be more compatible with the surrounding area. And these are a few that are usually used for a substation. The entrance and access road to substation shall consist of and be maintained with surfacing, so it's not dirt road. No portion of the site shall be used for storage of equipment, vehicles, materials, or supplies except for during construction. All outdoor light fixtures shall be shielded with cutoff fixtures and directed downward to prevent off-site glare. All areas outside of the fence, or if in some cases they use walls, shall be graded and seeded in the grass. And finally, a reclamation plan shall be submitted to and approved by the Riley County Planning Board. That's if it were to be decommissioned, it would be removed and returned to pasture grass. Again, one of the things that are not on here is the screening and landscaping that help hide the station. These are some of the things for the board to consider. Again, I'd like to hold off on my recommendation until you hear what they have to say so that you can see the updated one. But it still, I think, applies here. The views and the sight lines to or from an important cultural historical site, such as Ashland Cemetery, could be adversely affected by the physical presence of a new substation. It's not necessarily documented, and it's not, there's not evidence to prove that, but it's assumed that that could happen, which could have long-term effects. That's why this is the suggestion to move away from that entrance, away from that would be preferable. The overall aesthetic impact of the new substation is highly dependent on the size and location of the facility. Smaller distribution substations may or may not be able to be camouflaged easily with vertical fencing or landscaping. There's an effort to do so. In rural settings, local property owners may object to facilities' strong visual impact with the physical appearance of the transformers, switches, high fences, or the new substations that detract from the rural character. In this particular case, there will be no transformers. This is quite frankly very small scale compared to a normal substation. No, it would not look like what you see at the corner of Purcell Road and Tuttle Creek Boulevard. It's a completely different thing.
What about the one at Wildcat Creek down in Annenberg?
That's even larger than this.
Yeah, that is really.
Much larger. So again, I'm gonna hold off and let them present it so that you can see what they have to present. Although electrical substations have an undeniable industrial look to them, the reality is that they are needed and cannot be expected to locate only in industrial districts or areas designed for or designated for industrial uses. There has to be a balance, a reasonable balance, I should say, between rural character and the aesthetics of essential services that do not necessarily conform to what is considered rural or naturally occurring. With that said, it's encouraged to not only locate such facilities in safe, convenient locations such as outside of a floodplain, but to consider adjustments to the site selection that could help minimize real or perceived impacts on view sheds and surrounding cultural amenities. And speaking with the applicant, I believe that's what they have at least attempted to do. The proposed switching station is necessary as part of an essential facility tied into the overall critical infrastructure and will benefit the community as a whole. Section 1.8 of exemptions of the land development regulations exempts public service wires and poles, but not the substation itself, or switching station, whatever you want to call it. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commission approve the request based on the new information, not this information. The proposed substation was selected based on the location of the existing 115 kilovolt transmission line that will be connected to the substation to accommodate future load. As mentioned, the switching station also serves to serve the people that are already there in existence. The substation will contain equipment that function as switches and breakers that will allow personnel to perform maintenance on the transmission lines and substation equipment without subjecting customers to unnecessary outages. Proposed substation will not pollute the air, land, or water, or produce dust, fumes, odors, smoke, or vibration, or hum, or additional traffic. It has been determined that the request meets the requirements of the Raleigh County Land Development Regulations and the Raleigh County Sanitary Code. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commission approve the request based on the following conditions. The entrance and access road to the substation will consist of and be maintained with all weather surfacing. No portion of the site will be used for the storage of equipment. It can be and will be, if approved through their updated site plan, landscaped. And in order to try to meet the rural character guidelines provided in the comprehensive plan. That's all I have. I believe the applicant has a presentation. We would like to give an update as to what's been going on and give the board an opportunity to review that. So with that, does anyone have any questions for me?
Do we need to review the update at this point? That's you.
You haven't-
Evergy is gonna give us an update on
Well,
what's
the-
going on, isn't that gonna be reserved for another?
No, no, it's not reserved. You can say whatever you want, basically, provided you follow our conduct during your assigned time. But because there might be, just as if in a normal, in the usual meeting like this, you might hear something from public comment on a land use issue. You think, hey, that's a great idea. We're going to send it back to the planning board. But again, even in that circumstance, you have one, even if with one valid protest petition, and two doesn't make it anymore, doesn't change this. With a valid protest petition, you still couldn't send it back without a unanimous vote of the board to send it back. So you can hear from Evergy, and Evergy may use its time for however they want to use it. They'll have 17 minutes, just as was used by the staff, to make their presentation.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure, absolutely.
No more questions.
Okay. Thank you. Evergy?
You want me to tell you when we're at 16 minutes?
No, I'm not gonna take 17 minutes, that's fine. Jessica Keck with Evergy. And Bob's correct, we went through the public hearing process. We obviously received a lot of comments. Took to heart a lot of those comments. We still believe in the need for the switching station, but we've had time to talk to the landowner. Those negotiations take time. I apologize for it being such a quick turnaround. We didn't have time to do survey and do all the design that was necessary. What we are trying to make concessions and to make this as, I can't even think of the word. We're trying to make this as inintrusive as possible. So we have talked to the landowner. We have looked at a different site on their property. We are not prepared at this point to do the whole site design for that. So this application will be based on the old site design, which we're no longer pursuing. So I guess Evergy's recommendation would be to withdraw an application and we will resubmit at the new location when we have time to bring together the site design. Like I said, the landowner discussions take time. It was not our intent to waste your guys' time today, and I apologize for that. We were trying to get all the comments that we had heard and to develop something that works better for the community as well. Saying that, I'll take any questions you have for me.
What? Just a question, what is a switching station in the middle of a line, in the middle of what does it do? It isn't transformers, it isn't stepping up, it isn't splitting it, and dropping it down to lower
It's basically,
use.
it's, and if I don't say it right, I have some engineers here with me that are smarter than I am that'll say it, but it's basically taking the power and giving you the options to switch to a different line if you have a power outage on the line. So instead of having one line that has no breakers, no switches in it, if that line goes down, the line goes down. If we have a switching station in there, we have options to switch the power from one line to the next so we can get power to the communities faster because the whole line's not down, just a part of it. We can work on that part while we're feeding the community at the same time. And the switching station gives us the ability to do that. It's not a substation, there's no transformers, it's just switches and it's shorter gear work, 10, 15 feet max. When a switching or a substation is about 20, 25 feet. And it does tie into our existing line. We have an existing line, transmission line that runs, like Bob said, through the Konza Prairie, straight all the way through, and then it runs north and south through that area. When we presented this site, when we look for a site, we look for, floodplains and topography and a willing landowner, and this site worked. It was right next to our transmission line. We didn't realize how big of a problem it would be visually until we went to the hearing and we got the feedback from the public. And that's when we tried to move it farther back. I don't want to present what we have on that yet because we don't have a final. And I want to make sure that we have
something that is a true depiction of what we will plan on doing at that location.
So it would be the same location as you.
It would be the
determined,
same
but just
property owner.
Further back, so it's still within view of property owners.
It's on the same property. It's as far, pretty much as far back north as we can get. So it'll be very much less visual. You won't be able to see as much. And we plan on screening, not a wall at this point, because a wall would take away, it would probably draw attention to it. So hopefully some more natural looking screening on that site, which we would do on the proposed site as well. We were fully prepared to do screening on that site as well.
The screening is what is it?
It usually vegetative screening, so it would be, kind of whatever you guys,
Tall trees.
tall trees, except for we can't put tall trees in the transmission line corridor, so we could do
Okay.
some shrubbery or 15 feet, arborvitae or something along those lines. Something to help break up the fact that it's a switching station out on the prairie or in the farm field. And the site that we did select, I was part of the selection on that because I knew the Conja Prairie was right there. If we went south of there, because we have the transmission line going through the Conja Prairie, if we went south of there, we would have to take transmission lines west into the new switching station. So you would have more transmission lines across the Conja Prairie. That site was selected because it was farm ground. It wasn't part of the natural prairie. And it was an attempt to try to stay away from and do as little damage as possible to any native vegetation or even the prairie. We could have gone farther north, but there's floodplains. So we're really landlocked in that area for it being closer to the transmission line. If we go farther east or west, we'll have to have two lines that come into the existing transmission line to take it to that switching station. So it's a big matter of location. I mean, the ground was great for it. It's flat, no floodplains. It was not on the prairie or did not affect the prairie by adding more poles to it. So those considerations were taken in effect on the existing site. Since the public meeting, we've taken even more consideration and tried to decrease the visual aspect of it as well. And that's our plan going forward.
Why that particular location in general? And why wasn't there any community involvement or engagement up and into that planning meeting on the April 10th?
We did meet with the Ashland Bottoms Township.
Okay.
And we explained our plan. We had a very open conversation with them. They had said that they could provide us with some more locations. We had asked, we didn't receive any more locations back. We also have to have a willing landowner. Or we don't have to, we really like to have a willing landowner, or makes the conversations go a lot better when you have a willing landowner. A lot of suggestion was saying, can you put it up by Stag Hill across the river? That's too close to that transmission line and that circuit. That when you get all those substations, switching stations closer, it takes away the reliability side of it, or the benefit you get from the reliability when you have them so close to each other. If you have a major event happen in one area and you have all your power infrastructure in one area, it takes away the benefit of having it kind of spread out. You try to make a loop is what you try to do. So a lot of suggestion was having it up closer to Stag Hill. It's too close. Some suggestions was taking it down by the highway. That is actually fairly far away, and there's very little suitable land spaces for it. It's really hilly, really rocky. So that's why we selected that area.
What about going towards 177? There's a lot of industrial area over in there.
That's west of where we're at currently, correct? East.
You
would still-
and those.
You would still have to bring in those double circuit transmission lines into it to tie your switching station into it, which would be more impact on the landowners in between those two sites. So having a site directly underneath our existing line is ideal for the impact of the landowners.
Okay, thank you.
Evergy, you've got 8 minutes if you want to use it.
At this point, we want to open for public comments. Okay, all of you have been here, or you've probably gotten the rules for our public comments. So if we have some public comment, try to condense it into not everybody talking about the same issue, but and have a different viewpoint, and we'll be limited to 3 minutes for each speaker. And come to the podium, say your name and address, and then we will county counselor will be timing you. And you give what, 1 minute warning?
Most people want it, like a minute warning. You would like to know when you have a minute left?
Yes.
Sure.
Lawrence Lemon, 3881 South Point Street in Ashland Bottoms. I'm the township trustee. I was in the board meeting with Evergy. I think it was middle of March. And we looked at maps of the reasons for this substation, which everybody's using that word, substation. It's called the Kansas substation in their application. The picture that you have at the end of this is a 300 by 300 foot pad that Manhattan's substation is on, with chain link fence, razor wire, and so forth. Big towers. That's what's coming. This is why they want that site. They talked to previous people in the township who did not want to sell, but they said to them, we need to get to Ogden. And that's why we need this particular location. So I need to apologize to Evergy for the yellow line map that I apparently forgot about, which Patrick drew after our meeting with them, and where we looked at the maps that showed the desired line to go straight over to Ogden. So all of this discussion about moving to north into the Cedar Groves property makes no difference in terms of the long range impact of eventual towers that go across Ashland Bottoms. And the substation is bound to become, with more development, which is also in their application. This site is big enough for more future expansion. It's going to become more like that than some innocuous little switching station. Or very well could, given the projections for growth in Ogden, airport demands, and so forth. Words matter. Bob used the word site selection. Now he's using the word site design and site plan. We're going to change the site plan so it won't be so damaging. Well, this is the entirely wrong site. A good landscape architect, which I am, would be looking for the site selection and say to the client right out the bat, this is not the right place for this. You cannot screen this adequately. People will know what it is. Driving out the Kansa entrance, they're going to see this, remember this, no matter what you try to do to use arborvitae or shrubs to hide something like this. It does not work. Now, I'm an attorney as well, and I apologize to the board for so much information, but I think that's kind of how attorneys work. They get really exercised and they want to make sure that their points are understood. So please don't shoot the messenger in this situation. I'm trying to defend my community and this town and this county. I'm on your Rural Economic Development Advisory Board. I was serving on the board of the planning board for 20-some years, where I used both my legal knowledge and my landscape architectural knowledge all the time. I've been very busy since Friday when I saw the first, your packet came out on Thursday night, I think. So I've been very busy since Friday with a number of friends and others to be prepared for today. So I'm going to turn it over to other friends who want to speak, other people who have very important points to explain why the landscape development, the land regulations 1, 2, 3, and 6 that should be used here, all of which have to be met by our rules, our regulations. It's not just rule guidelines, it's our regulations that always have to be met. If you're going to not accept what the planning board is recommending to deny this application.
Time's up.
I'll stop right there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker.
Would you like to know when you have a minute? Would you like to know when there's a minute left?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Sure.
My name is Paul Barkey. I live at 4236 Grantham Drive in St. George. I address the spiritual aspects of Ashland Bottoms, and McDowell Creek Road is a Kansas byway, scenic byway. Following along McDowell Creek Road is the Ashland Bottom Cemetery. Ashland community was founded in 1855. One of the founding residents was William Stone. His marriage to Matilda was the first marriage celebrated in the community. They farmed together on McDowell Creek Road. In 1862, their infant daughter, Mary Elizabeth, died and was buried on their property. His wife, Matilda, was laid to rest next to their daughter in 1876. William Stone transferred 2 acres where his wife and daughter were buried to the Ashland Township as a cemetery. William Stone died in 1923 and at the age of 92 was buried in lot 104 of Ashland Cemetery. The surrounding property was purchased by the Ellis family from Mr. Flourish in 1942, donated to the township, expanding and defining the cemetery boundaries. Jim and Lois Curry purchased additional land from the Ellises, which was added to the west for future needs. The proposed location of the Evergy switching station adjacent to the Ashland Bottom Cemetery is particularly troubling to me and people that I love. For the last 25 years, I've had the wonderful blessing of serving as pastor of Ashland Community Church. Each time we drive by McDowell Creek Road is a spiritual experience as we are filled, touched by the incomparable beauty of the valley. Each trip by the cemetery is deeply spiritual as we are filled with wonderful memories of those no longer with us, but remain in our thoughts. There are people here this morning who have children, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, and neighbors
1 minute, sir.
in this cemetery as their final resting place. I'll skip, you know what cemeteries are, how important they are. But I want to say that the natural beauty of Ashland Cemetery is deeply moving. The quiet of Ashland Bottoms, the Kanza, trees, creeks, birds, wildlife, all that is part of what we cherish in that experience. I'd like to close with a mood question. What if the switching station was in place and we were looking for a location to establish a new, non-existing cemetery in the area? Would we choose to establish a cemetery at its present location, yet the switching station were already there? I think not. I don't think as Riley County Commissioners, you would choose to locate the cemetery there either. We all know that it doesn't fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Howdy. Would you like to know when you have a minute?
No, I don't think that's Jared Parsons, 3721 South 33rd Street, Manhattan. I've lived in the area for 35 years, since I was about 7. I got a family, 3 kids and a wife that live just north of this proposed area. Now that the new one's going to be proposed a little more north, I'm sure we'll even be closer. Yeehaw. So just a couple concerns. The first being, obviously my big one is the cemetery. Them moving it north does help that, but keep in mind where they're proposing that driveway is going to be right out the front door of the cemetery. And that's what I want to say when I was talking about the cemetery. Not only I got friends there, I plan to be there. I don't want to look at it. This new one, this new proposed area, yeah, it's gonna be farther away. That will be beneficial because keep in mind it is the front of the cemetery, not the side, not the back, not the, you know, we're talking on the front door of the cemetery. But the new one's going to have that driveway going straight out of it, which is, it is what it is. But my beef is, or not beef, my issue would be the cemetery and the residents in there. And the other one is the high wires, which will be going west to to accommodate the people, the airport and Ogden, all that. That'll be value and property. In Ashland Bottom, we've got some of the richest farm ground in the county. I don't think that that's a good use of good dirt, but that's for you guys to say. And the mental and physical damage from living under power lines, which is where it would be near my house, is what it sounds like, or over my house, which does concern me and my family. I want to speak just a couple things left. I understand the private property rules, and I definitely do not want to take anybody's rights away, private property owners' rights. But with property ownership, your actions affect others when you make decisions to do things on your land, you know, sometimes that takes accommodations and compromise to better the community that we all live in. In closing, a scenic byway to Manhattan is a scenic byway to Manhattan adds value to Manhattan as well as our rural community. All right. Take the recommendation of the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Pass these along.
Sure. Would you like to know when you have a minute left?
Huh?
Would you like to know when you have a minute left? Speak.
Also, I have statements here that I wanted to share with everybody. I won't go through that entirely. I did most of that presentation to the planning board, and I suspect you got records of all that earlier.
Will you state your name, please?
My name is Ron Lataski. I live at 4490 McDowell Creek Road. We're just to the southeast of this proposal. And we have I have a number of concerns based on this particular proposal that we're dealing with, although it's just been switched out on us this morning. But one of the things that I didn't have in my statement before, although I did allude to it, was the fact that Effigy's buying 12 acres. They proposed to buy 12 acres, not to put a little teeny switching station there. They wouldn't need 12 acres for that. I would encourage everyone to go out to Parcel Road and drive up to the substation there to see what can be done on 12 acres and how intrusive it was. That particular substation was built by the company, initially started without any planning permit. They just started building it. And so the neighbors there had absolutely no recourse to express their concerns. And the pictures that I share with you here this morning show the substation as well as the poles right down next to the residents along Parcel Road, you know, just across the road. And so we do appreciate the fact that many of us had a few days' notice initially that they were going to the planning board with this proposal. But as was alluded to by one of the commissioners this morning, is
1 minute.
Why does not Effigy, when they're looking at these kinds of projects, go in and deal with the community as a whole, especially when you have a close-knit community like we have, and in the Ashland Bottoms community, where people are very committed to preserving the pastoral and the natural character of the land. In our case, we placed conservation easements on 80 acres of our property to preserve the view from the trail and preserve values and Concept Prairie present. I would encourage Effigy to earmark some of their contributions to the Nature Conservancy to purchase conservation easements around the Gonzo Prairie to make the enhancement of these values that we all share even greater. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can keep those.
Any other speakers?
Would you like to know when you have a minute?
Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Maureen Lednick, and my husband Jan and I live at 5011 McDowell Creek Road. And in the map that was shown earlier, we are the single family resident that was down in the bottom corner, just outside of the 1,000 foot range of the terminal that's going to be put in, that they're looking at putting in there. We bought that house about 30 years ago and have lived there for that length of time. It was alluded to earlier that this is a very close-knit community. People live there for quality of life, and the land around there is tended to carefully. And as you know, there's a sign coming into town saying that this is a scenic valley drive to Manhattan, and it's there for a reason. The valley through there offers so much quality to visitors coming in, to visitors to the Kanza. And it's a beautiful, beautiful way to come into the Manhattan community. The house that we have there has offered challenges over the years. We put a lot of money and a lot of sweat equity into building it into something that we think fit into the area. About 15 years ago, my husband builds custom furniture. We put a shop there for him to continue his business in. And by design, we placed it well off of the main road so that it can't really be seen by anybody driving in. We didn't want to take away from that entrance into the Manhattan area and across the Kanza. I did do some research on the impact of power stations and power lines on value of property. And it ranges in areas that are pretty rural. There's not a lot of impact, but with homes in those areas, the impact can be huge. I saw impacts ranging from 15 to 50%, where the average is about 40%. So those high power lines going over someone's home, or even having that switching station right outside of your home, which would be the case for us, does have a huge impact. So this is not a small issue for the homeowners in the area, and it's certainly not a small issue for Riley County. Because again, that is dollars coming into the county itself. I'm sure you've read the Riley County Vision 2025 comprehensive plan, and probably some of you worked on writing that. And it states in there, the agricultural landscape is an essential part of the character and environment. We believe that this really speaks against that focus that we have for the 2025 plan for this area. And I hope you'll agree that this is really the wrong place to put this station. Thank you.
Thank you. And speaker?
You on the list.
Right.
Would you like to know when you have a minute, Lynn?
Yes, absolutely. Martha Seaton, and I'm at 3200 Shane Creek Lane, off of McDowell Creek Road. And we attend the church in Ashland, and this is our community. So, well, I wrote a letter to you, and I did not bring a copy of it, but it dealt with the cemetery in particular, the sensitivity of the people towards the cemetery. And because I myself am sensitive to electromagnetic field, the way I believe it is being studied and is not yet understood. And you probably can perceive it right here in my manner of speaking. I believe really sincerely that I want whatever comes into Ashland community to bring something really positive and absolutely not something that will cause the kind of trauma and anxiety and emotion that this particular setup has caused the community. I believe that there are very sensitive people all over the world. And I would like to think that, like everyone else has said, that we would consider the balance of human feeling towards the health of a community as total and individually. I think that's a very important point that has been made by others. So I would like very much to say that I believe this is not a healthy prospect for Ashland community, and I would like to ask that it not happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Brian Klataski, 813 Juniper Drive.
Would you like to know when you have a minute?
Please. I'm here to urge you to oppose construction of the switching station near the entrance of Conza Prairie, one of our community's most treasured natural resources, a hub for outdoor recreation and a symbol of the environmental, cultural, and economic value of the Flint Hills and Tallgrass Prairie. The Conza Prairie and the scenic views from this hiking trail are a source of civic pride and identity. Just think of all the businesses and organizations in our community with names like Conza and Tallgrass, and the many others who take pride in our unique landscape and the products, experiences, and quality of life it provides. When we see images of Manhattan or Kansas, we often see photos of the Conza Prairie and the view from the top of the hill that looks across the valley. As others have mentioned, a sign on I-70 even describes the road through this valley as the scenic river road to Manhattan. And if this proposed station is built, it will become a visible part of these images at a detriment to the scenic value of our community. I'm speaking to you today from multiple points of view. First, as someone whose family's land is located within 1,000 feet of the proposed site, we would be directly impacted. For example, my wife and I have considered restoring an old barn on the property and offering nature-based tourism opportunities. But this proposed switching station would make this plan unfeasible by diminishing the surrounding scenic rural character. Although I'm troubled by the potential impact to the value of our land, I want to stress that I'm most concerned about the surrounding rural community in which our family and land are embedded. As Manhattan continues to grow, we should actively work to preserve the heritage and scenic value of rural areas and surrounding communities. We should also aim to grow without disregarding and diminishing the lives of the people that are already there. Second, I'm speaking to you as an avid hiker and a member of the Friends of the Conza Prairie, as well as someone who believes that protecting the view shed from this trail is one way to continue to make Manhattan a place where people are proud to raise their families, and where both locals and visitors can hike, bike, rural roads, and enjoy the beauty of the Flint Hills. Our unique scenery is one thing that makes Manhattan special, and we should protect it. Third, as a cultural anthropologist, I've seen firsthand how communities around the world, including farming and ranching regions like Kansas, can benefit from nature-based and agricultural-based tourism, as well as efforts to value and protect rural character and scenery. These efforts are not only good for landowners, but they can be good for surrounding towns and economies too. Because this proposed switching station would dramatically impact the scenic value and character of Ashland Bottoms, it diminishes the potential for this community and the broader public to benefit from similar forms of nature-based tourism and land use. All too often around the world, development takes place without consideration for local people, and this shouldn't be another example. So I urge you to oppose construction and affirm the decision of the planning board. And I'll just end by saying that shrubbery is not how you value and care for rural character. Thank you.
Would like to know when you have a minute.
My name is Valerie Wright. I live at 3048 Shane Creek Lane off of McDowell Creek Road and 2 miles north of the Conza Prairie entrance. I've been a resident of Riley County for 45 years and at my current address for 35 years. I am a member of the Ashland Bottoms community. I have serious concerns about all of the plans in our area that Evergy has. I'm a retired educator. I was the Kansas Prairie Education Director for 15 years. Emeritus professor at Kansas State University, and a former member of the steering committee and other committees that developed the Flint Hills Discovery Center. Kansas Prairie Biological Station, as you all know, it's internationally known research area. Its presence in our community adds to the value of the region, and it should be protected from unsightly development and especially environmental disturbance. The substation would detract from the scenic value of McDowell Creek Road as a designated scenic byway, which brings tourists and visitors to Manhattan. Counts at the Kansas Prairie Nature Trail estimate that more than 10,000 hikers a year use that trail and then come into the Manhattan community. The surrounding counties and Manhattan put together a great effort into engaging the kind of visitors that come and visit the Flint Hills Discovery Center, which it was the attraction that was required for Manhattan to receive the star bonds for the South End Development Project.
Yeah, 1 minute.
The current and future vision of the Flint Hills Discovery Center is stated as being committed to preserving the very landscape that makes the Flint Hills unique and celebrating the ecology, history, and culture of the farming and ranching region. We should protect this investment for Manhattan and aid in the community vision. So the vision that the community center has said, the Flint Hill Discovery Center has said, is it is committed to preserving the landscape that makes the Flint Hills unique and celebrating the ecology, history, and culture. So many in the Ashland community are landowners who are responsible for the beautiful ranches and farms that help make McDowell Creek Road a scenic byway. Please protect our community and all of the scenic byway from unsightly, unnecessary, and potentially damaging development. I hope you can find energy another site. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Okay.
Would you like to be told to live in them?
Sure, that'd be great. Hi, I'm Emma Luthold. I live at 2241 West 40th Avenue, Manhattan, Kansas. I just have a quick something to say. I emailed you all the speech I gave at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting on April 10th. I'm not going to repeat what I've already emailed you all. I just have two things I'd like to speak on. First being when we purchased our forever home to raise our family, which is in Ashland Bottoms. When we purchased our home, we had to write a letter to the zoning department about how we would keep our property zoned as agriculture and not to develop it whatsoever. And that's literally what we had to do. This was the purchase of a home that had 22 acres on it with 13 acres of crop and 9 acres of timber and brush. Approving this switching station would go against not only Vision 2025 of Riley County, the exact thing your zoning department made me and my husband pour our hearts out on paper to approve our rezoning of our home. The second thing I'd like to talk about is power poles. If you approve the switching station, you have no control on how many power poles or the location of the power poles that Evergy wants to put up supporting their switching station. This means our quiet rural community could turn into a maze of unattractive, massive steel poles and wires that no one can control, not even Riley County. So you guys can't do anything about it.
I ask you to please affirm the Planning and Zoning Board's decision and do not turn my family and neighbors' community into a cold industrial maze that Ashland Bottoms and McDowell Creek is not. And I also invite you guys, if you've never been to Ashland Bottoms, McDowell Creek, which I hope is not true, I welcome you to come take a ride in the combine, come ride on the Ranger to check on cattle, come gather eggs, do whatever. But this is where my family is. Do not, please do this. My husband has been out there. He's a 4th generation farmer and rancher. Please do not do this. Thank you.
Like to know when you ever.
Hi, my name's Cheryl Strecker and I live at 411 North 16th Street near City Park. So the way I see it, the framework that you're operating under is pretty straightforward. When you deliberate, you go down through the 6 criteria and special use regulations. And when you get to one that you can't affirmatively find is met, it has to be denied. And there are 4 of these that I don't think you can find can be met. And it doesn't matter if they move it around within the 12 acres that they're wanting to buy. So I think you can make a decision today to deny. You have to find that it complies with the intent of the comprehensive plan. That's impossible to do given the facts that you have in front of you. That it will not have a substantial adverse impact on public health, safety, or general welfare. The general welfare that everybody's been talking about. Your citizens are telling you what the general welfare is and that this is going to be harmed. That it won't cause substantial injury to property values nearby. I don't see how you can affirmatively find that won't happen, no matter where within the 12 acres they start this project. And by the way, their proposal talks about expanding it. I don't think there's any question that's the intent long term. And you also have to find it's compatible with adjacent uses. That's the concept. That's this pastoral farmland that's supposed to be protected under the comprehensive plan. It's the scenic byway. It's not compatible with those. And we're talking about not some little substation that Evergy tries to minimize. We're talking about the footprint of what they want to put in is the size of 2 football fields stuck side by side. That's pretty big if you imagine standing on a football field and it's filled with equipment with towers up to 35 feet tall. No shrub or planting or berm is going to fix that. So, sending this back is going to do no good. It should be denied now. And as has been pointed out, once it's in, the poles and wires are out of anybody's control. They can do what they want, put them wherever they want. The planning board specifically found that this proposal did not comply with the intent of the comprehensive plan. That's criteria number 1 in 6. And that's all you need. The board said the location just wasn't appropriate. This location in general is not appropriate. It doesn't matter whether you play whack-a-mole of where you're going to put it. So sending it back, the planning board considered mitigation measures and couldn't find that any of those would work because they won't. There's nothing you can do to critify something like this of this magnitude. So the location is the problem that can't be fixed. And not only that, it's really not the job of this commission, the planning board, citizens here, or the staff here to work on Evergy's logistical business problems. They have a lot of resources and staff to do that. And they need to go back to the drawing board and propose an appropriate location. It's this commission's job to apply those 6 criteria and make a determination and to represent the citizens' interests. And I have every faith that you will do that. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Quinlan. I live on 14295 Lower McDowell Creek Road, Manhattan, Kansas, 66502. And this month marks 44 years that I've lived out there. When I found out about this proposed switching station, it hit me like a hit in the gut. It honestly just sent the most horrible feeling through me, and I have dedicated every minute I could since then to trying to talk to people about it and get it changed. I volunteered in some way or another for at least 20 years out at Conza Prairie. It's a place very near and dear to my heart. I have talked to people and led hikes of people from out of country and from out all over America. And it never fails to amaze me how much they love this spot, whether they've been here before or not. I recently was at the trailhead and talked to people who, again, have said, this is the first place I come when I get here. I don't go to my hotel. I don't go to the restaurants. I can get food. I come to Conza to see how she's doing. This is my home away from home. I've led hikes with children for high school and junior high school. I'll never forget a little boy who was an Army brat who had never been out in the prairie or out of the big city mostly. And when I asked them later what was their favorite thing, this boy said, I got to walk on grass. And I've never forgotten that. He loved it. I talked to another little girl who was out there, and she was from Kansas City, inner city, and she looked around and she said, who waters all this? I said, honey, God does. If this goes in, this is chipping away at the beauty that's there, of the atmosphere that's there. And we just can't do that. The other thing that keeps coming up is the cemetery there. If you drive by there, and again, I'm another that will ask you, drive by there at night. It's lit up like a little village because it is the most tended cemetery I've ever seen in my life. People decorate for the holidays, for crying out loud. I know 2 families who have lost children in terribly tragic accidents that are buried there. Those families visit almost every week. After the last meeting, when I brought this up, the mother of one of those boys found me on Facebook and messaged me and said, thank you for mentioning and remembering my son. And I cried for a week about that because it needs to be. I'll just say one last thing, if you don't mind. If you let this go through, it doesn't just hurt Manhattan or Riley County, it hits Kansas and it hurts the nation. Thank you.
You'd like to know when you have a minute?
I'll take that long. Patrick O'Neill, 3230 McDowell Creek Road. My neighbors have eloquently said a lot of things that I might have poetically enunciated as well. So I'm going to cut off half of what I was going to say and just jump to the fact that I am on the township. I am the manager of Conza. And as has been, and it's been said here, that the proposed research station, the staff report suggests that the proposed station will not impact the research at Conza. And I hope it's very clear that that staff report ignores the social and economic impact that Conza has on our community and the economy beyond its research function. We hope that you, the commissioners, acknowledge that value and make decisions to support rather than degrade what this private-public partnership has created and what the citizens of Riley County and beyond freely benefit from. The staff report suggests that our governmental function is to clear the path for Evergy, rather than provide the necessary guidance and insight to thoughtfully direct necessary infrastructure development. Increased power to the Ogden substation is the prime function of the substation in this proposal, as it establishes an anchor for another 115 kilovolt new line. According to the information provided by Evergy to the township officers, this line from Ashland is one of 2 that will serve that function. 1 is sufficient. This station and the subsequent lines are neither a necessity, nor are they in the best interest of Riley County, its residents, and the many visitors who enjoy the treasures this station will negatively impact. And I urge you to deny the application. And furthermore, obviously, there's legal issues with whatever decision you guys are going to make here today, but I hope the statements and the decisions that you make clearly portray the intent that that this is not the community to add this infrastructure into. So I thank you for your time very much.
We'll have one more speaker. That work?
I'll be very brief. I'm Dick Seaton, 3200 Shane Creek Lane in Manhattan. I got to thinking about the entrances to Manhattan, and there are 4 or 5 of them. But the only 1, 2 that are really scenic and rural and beautiful are the one from Zendale and this one. And if you put this thing in, I think we're going to be down to 1 really beautiful rural entrance to Manhattan. Thank you.
Ben, would you like to know we get 1 minute?
Yes. I'm Becky Lynn, 3550 McDowell Creek Road, bought a house in 1981. We checked the zoning. We felt safe in having our forever home in the agriculture zone. That limited the amount of even homes that can develop in that area by the zoning of about 5 acres per property. And that was our plan. A couple of things that haven't been emphasized much is the number of bicycles that use McDowell Creek Road as a scenic drive. Sometimes I see 15 and 20 bikes in the trip to Manhattan, and it's only 5 miles to town. So we have a tremendous number of bicyclists that are probably not represented because they don't know this is all going on. I have a major fear of future additions to these lines if the first one goes in, because the property is larger than what they need for just this. You have my letter of concerns. The current lines that they keep emphasizing are not 100-foot tall. They are not 8 foot at their base. It's not as intrusive as what we're considering at this point for everybody to be considering. I also want to mention the emotional issues. Joy Swallow is currently in the hospital, and she has had so much anxiety over this issue. She has shed so many tears, so many nights she couldn't sleep. Her husband is buried in the cemetery. She is traumatized by the possibility of this substation going in right by the cemetery. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to close the public speaking portion of this. Now with the commissioners, it's time for our discussion.
Just going through everything, I do have questions of whether or not it meets all the guidelines and criteria of the comprehensive plan. I think people who know me well know I'm usually for development. But it does have to be responsible and it does have to make sense. I get that electrical infrastructure in particular is extremely important and it's extremely valuable. My overall thought on this, honestly, is this just isn't the right location for the many reasons that have been discussed and many reasons that we haven't really dove into specifically, including criteria, the comprehensive plan and land development. I think a couple of those, I think you can maybe make a plausible argument for, but not all of them. And I do agree it does have to make sense and it does have to meet all the qualifications. And I have concerns on that.
And I'm familiar. I remember it as the Dewey Ranch.
Yeah.
Sure, so you do. I had a friend that lived out there in the late 70s, one of the old ramshackle houses. They let him fix up and live in there. Well, he finished at K-State and then actually taught at Alma for a while. Well, we ended up as president of 2 major universities, but we started out living out in that area. But it seems to me this isn't going to be denied, but will we resubmit it again? And I just like to make some comments that probably make people mad, but this is it. In reviewing the information I got from this meeting, found strange numbers. The commission packet, there were 26 responses. Of those, 14 were from areas outside of Ashland and 3 others were form letters. In addition, there were 18 emails that I received directly. Only 6 of those were people from Ashland. I want to know what the people there, not people in Overland Park. here, because I did get some from Overland Park even. Someone decided that burying us in responses would be a good idea. They were wrong. The stack of comments from outsiders only annoyed me and reversed the effect on my thoughts. One person in particular sent 6 emails in the last week. Informed me how important the person is, landscape architect and lawyer, showed pictures of all the books he's read to show that he knows so much more than me. Later, he listed all the problems he sees along Owl Creek Road, of all the things that are wrong, and some people were actually building big houses. Learned a new term last week, picked up another term, caveman, citizens against virtually everything. That's not what we want to hear. That's not what I want to hear for. And that's not what most people are, but there's some that were doing that. And after that, I ignored most things he had to say. But I agree, this isn't, I want to hear from the local people with reasonable expectations. And it doesn't seem to meet the needs. A lot of questions about it.
I wanted to add a
Yeah,
caveat
okay.
there, just so we're aware of it. Part of my family grew up in the McGow Creek area on the Gary County side. Great grandparents helped build the St. Joseph's Church out there. They're buried in that cemetery. My grandmother went to the schoolhouse there just along the way there, 7 miles up one way in the snow, barefoot, so on and so forth. But so I do have ties to the area, also in my district. I get where everybody's coming from on this. I hope we can find some applicable solution because I understand how important it is. I just feel like this location isn't fitting for what we need to do here and needs to probably be left for agricultural needs or something variable.
Okay, well, my thoughts are very similar. I believe in the beauty of the area, and I appreciate all the people here that have come to speak, and I take that really to heart, what people feel about the place they live in. I too love to go hike on the Conza Prairie, and I love to take my dog for walks, not up in the Conza Prairie. And have a lot of friends that are bicyclists, and they really enjoy the area. I also understand development and that we need electricity, and when the electricity goes out, of course, we want it to go on right away. It isn't always that. It's not very, very pretty to look at. And I've seen quite a few substations and switching stations, and they do expand, and there's no way to hide them. And so I would really encourage everybody to look at a different location altogether. Some area that is more industrialized, or is more zoned for that type of activity, other than in a rural area of Raleigh County, which I love with all my heart. And I am from a rural area, but I really taken Raleigh County as my home for many years. And I would uphold the planning board's decision, and I would hope that we see something a little more reasonable leveraging in the future. But I would oppose the decision with the planning board.
Just want to clarify one point, since I spoke probably too much about the fact that the board, because you have a protest petition that's valid, in fact, you have 2, but again, you only need 1. There needs to be a unanimous decision by the board if you overturn the decision of the planning board. That is not true if you affirm their decision. That is, you could have that, but it doesn't sound like that's what's going to happen, but see that when you vote. But that could be approved by a 2/3 vote, just like anything else. It's when you overturn the decision, you would have, or send it back for the recommendation, you would need a supermajority. You would need unanimous decision, just so you know.
On the board. So we have a vote.
Yeah, we're not. Just so we're clear, we're making a motion not to affirm or deny the planning boards, but the actual resolution and authorization itself, correct?
Well, right. I mean, but that's what's going to happen. That's the effect of approving or either. You're going to be either approving the decision or you're going to be overturning it. Whichever resolution you choose. Yes, decision of the planning.
I'd make a motion to approve the planning board's recommendations and deny the request for special use authorization to establish and operate an electrical substation as was determined that all requirements of county land development regulations and Raleigh County Sanitary Code have not been met.
I'll second.
It's moved in and seconded to approve the planning board's decision as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you all. for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you.
so much.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. For having no one else out there this Saturday. They have a lot of celebrations.
Yeah, let me see if I can get this agenda on.
Yeah, it's on my. I also want to say thank you. I followed your Facebook post during the COVID pandemic stuff. And all the information now, very timely manner. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
No, thank Appreciate that. I was down at the other parks this week. I know they celebrated on the March 90th.
Yeah, they're probably.
Last minute.
Take heed of what you said, they have not really wanted that location at all. Evergy likes to do stuff like that, so it's not. Keep up with the pictures, given. I don't like interpretations of that either. You know, the interpretation. Even power goes off in the caves and stuff, believe me, I join the caves and stuff, that's my area too. Switching station, may or may not work just based on. That's a question I asked, that's a question I haven't got an answer.
Thank you.
Somebody.
Yes, yeah, my name is John.
Okay. I used to drive here in social service. I'm
also.
And it popped up on the radar fast. I had to.
Yeah, I know.
Really dive into it. And no, I want to say that. I feel like it's by design. I just want to say that, but. Nice to meet you. Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I'll keep memory.
I did.
But yeah. This is what's happening.
I know how good our electric.
Appreciate it.
Oh,
yeah. He did the hard part. Keeping everything in order.
Yeah. We'll protect this.
Thank you, sir. John Farley.
John from this meeting, yes.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And we have a.
Yeah, I know.
We also need to remember, we've got a Mylar sign out there from the previous. Oh, I didn't go. Guess I need to do that. Yeah. Yes.
West, they actually, there's a line, power line that goes straight there. You know, if you're supposed to stay today, 10 or 11 years. On over here, south side, they don't talk about that.
I also feel like there's gonna be some things for development, potentially in the next 7 to 17. So that's gonna go back. So I really think they should stand with that application.
They're talking about milking the grid. You're farther from where they're getting you. It's on the desk.
It has some hard to answer. It's about location. So I just.
Yeah, that kind of, I use that as an concerned about that. You got a little farther away to get out of where everybody's living. It's a very decent, not a lot of people can stay out.
Well, and also the other question is too, dealt with, obviously we have to do control words and other things that. That means I don't be able to go to that particular location, it comes up that close on occasion every 3-4 years or so. This would be great if they're doing that in general, but. Yeah, so. Sure, but I'm sure Derek will have.
Thank you.
We did. Well, we just did. You didn't. Go ahead.